Hello again. This is me back with my little series of basically me just talking about anything movie or film related or even series or shows, which is what I'm going to talk about today. But this little rant has continued for 3 videos now, so I think that's really cool. It's really blossomed into something, and I'm glad I got to throw out all these ideas also the camera back onto the camera. Also came in contact with one of my recent subscribers. Um, Not recent subscribers, but hello crew. You were one of the first to support me, and I'm glad you're back. But today I wish to talk about I wish to talk about the expansion of a universe or of an idea of a story. And the two movies I want to talk about is Tangled and The Lion King. They're both from Disney. And well, I could talk about what I like about the original movies, the animation and the music and all the stuff all the stuff about that. But that's been done and said before millions of times. And not that I won't do that maybe now per se, or maybe later per se, but now I like to talk about what they do with this, not the story, but with the world building that the world separates. In these two worlds, it's kind of they tell you what the thing is, they tell you who these characters are, what they did, and then that's the story, and they build off, and then it ends, right? It really just is a one and done movie. But especially with nowadays, with people with the butchering of beloved franchises, and I use air quotes because sometimes people take it out of proportion, like in Devil May Cry. A lot of people don't like that adaptation, but a lot of like obviously and noticeably bad not representation, but remakes, or like the Mega Mind, that whole thing, Velma and stuff like that. But which was old drama. Um, Tangled, I like to talk about that and its specific remaking, I should say, is because it really just expands upon nothing. In Tangled, all the supernatural thing that you had was that a sun drop came from the sky and it led to the power, and then she has magic hair now. And then in the series, I don't want you to spoil it because you should watch it. It goes into so much detail on where that came from, and that there's more, and that there's a lot of stuff. So it really takes something really little, and it just sprouts, grows like a flower, ironically. And I think that's just really cool. And I'm going to get back into Lion King in a second. It's really cool that when a show or a series there is something that's like really small that you really don't notice about, or really, and it may be the core of the film, which is what it was for Tangled, right? The flowers why she has golden hair, and then she lost that hair, and blah blah blah. But then later it just builds upon it, and it doesn't exactly disrespect the source material, but it's almost if the writers they look at this source material and go, let's crank it to 11 because why not? And I also appreciate it because the show is aimed for children, and it really just gives these children, obviously anyone can watch it because do whatever you wish, do what you please. But and it really is like, wow, just because we're putting this on Disney Junior or Disney XD doesn't mean they can't. Doesn't mean that we don't have to go all out. And it's the same for Lion King, right? You know, the really only supernatural thing we get is that Mufasa shows up in the clouds, and then they go into this long detail about how there's a whole guard and how they can control the skies and just command winds, and it's so very intricate. Of course, it's still a kid show and it still has its moments and mischaracterization on some ends, and that's just a given. But I really like it from like a writing perspective that it's I want to say kind of challenging. That it's just like because I feel like it comes from a stem like, hey, we're bringing back Tangled, figure something out, and it's just like, okay, that movie ended and everyone's story was said and done. So like, what do I do here? You also have to keep an account where if you want to add certain things, you got to be like, well, why didn't he show up at this part of the movie? And then you really have to, tell the audience why this wasn't there in the movie, like how this squeezes in. But you also got to abide by the rule of show don't tell. So you really have to like squeeze things into the plot and make it make sense. One of these things, well, like for example, there's a new character in the show, Lancelot, and he's Flynn's best friend. Like if he's Flynn's best friend, why wasn't he there, hunting? And then it's naturally explained that he was on a trip. They spent their ways to go steal at different countries, different kingdoms, and then they haven't seen each other for a long time, and it's really just like it's good. It's really good. It spans upon the kingdom, and it's the same thing with the Lion King. Why wasn't Kion in the second movie? Because it takes place in between. It was like, well, at the end, he. I won't tell you what happens to him at the end, but it's things like that. But I really just want to, because, as I'm talking about movies and as I'm talking about what I like about them, I really, it's just like a segue into me thinking about, like, wow, writing is really, really, really important. Because if you think about it, if these series were just like, boom, all of a sudden she has powers. Boom, all of a sudden this guy, you watch the second movie, you watch the first movie, it really just takes you out of it. When you watch these movies, you watch these shows, it's supposed to transport you. It's supposed to put you in another world. And when you have these loose moments, it really just takes you out and it really just makes you remember this is a show. And when you're writing something and when you make something, you don't ever want someone to realize midway, oh, this is a show. Oh, this is an actor. Oh, this is just a soundbite, right? You want them to be invested through the entire thing. And when the credits roll, they just, if I were to do something like that, I want them, or as a director, you just want them to, as the movie is done, they just go, and they just wake up back to the world that they're from, and I really think that's the beautiful thing about not even just movies, but media in general, books, songs. The thing is, the whatever it is, it's over, and it's just like wow. And I really appreciate it because it just expands upon the universe. It really sinks in the fact that this is another place, this is another time, this is like so. I just like it when a movie or a show can just expand upon the universe and it really just feels so natural and so real. But that's all I wanted to talk about today. This is part three again, I think. If you have been watching, thank you because I really like making these.